I can't believe I didn't see this when the story first came out. Jacob Blake, kidnapper, abuser. You know the story of Jacob Blake? It was the man who was shot 7 times in the back and is now paralyzed from the waist down. The far left has defended him to a rather absurd degree. And then we found out this guy had physically assaulted a woman in her home. She called the cops. A warrant was issued, a felony warrant. This man came back. The police were called. He fought with the police, grabbed a knife. They shot him in the back because he was reaching for it and the cop was behind him. You see, the left kept saying there were children in the car. There were kids in the car. And I never put 2 and 2 together. Wow. Those weren't his kids. He had stolen the keys from the woman he was assaulting and was trying to steal her vehicle with her kids inside of it. And I did not realize it. And now we're learning from the lawyer of the cop who shot Blake. He heard the mother's desperate plea. He's got my kid. He's got my keys. And then I thought about it and said, whoa, duh. That wasn't his car. Those weren't his keys. He was literally trying to steal a vehicle with someone else's kid inside of it. What would have happened if this man wanted on a felony warrant for physically abusing a woman, got into a vehicle with a child and kidnapped that child, and the cop didn't do anything to stop it? What did we just see in Milwaukee? The Black Lives Matter activists showed up to a house and set it ablaze because they heard a rumor that 2 missing girls were in the house. They weren't even missing. They were at a friend's house. But the parent, I guess, was worried, couldn't get a hold of them. So a mob went to this random house and said, we know they're here. Let us in. They set fire to the house. They didn't burn it down completely. So these people are screaming about a kid's gone missing. You then get this cop who hears a woman saying, my kid, he's got my keys. And what's the cop supposed to do? Let this guy kidnap this child? This guy who's got a knife? Or stop him? And the cop did one of the only things he could do in the situation, because that kid's life comes first. From Channel 3000, they say, lawyer says cop shot Jacob Blake after hearing a mother's desperate plea. He's got my kid. He's got my keys. Police officer Rustin Chesky has told investigators that it wasn't just his life he was defending when he fired his weapon 7 times at Jacob Blake last month in Kenosha. He said he used deadly force during the Caddick encounter because he was afraid Blake, while attempting to flee the scene, was trying to kidnap a child in the backseat of the vehicle. Quote, he's got my kid. He's got my keys, Chesky heard a woman say, according to attorney Brendan Matthews, who was representing the officer. If Chesky had allowed Blake to drive away and something happened to the child, the question would have been, why didn't you do something? An impossible position for anyone. They're screaming because he shot a guy trying to kidnap a kid. And if he let the kid go, they'd be screaming at him still. Why would anyone want to be a cop? That explanation, provided in an exclusive interview with CNN, offers the most detailed rationale to date for Chesky's highly scrutinized decision to shoot Blake, who was black, as he leaned into an SUV with his children inside it on August 23rd. Cell phone video of the shooting went viral on the internet, sparking days of protests and rioting in the lakeside city of Kenosha. The shooting, which Blake's family has said resulted in paralysis from his waist down. So maybe they were both of their kids. I'm not entirely sure. The attorney's comments to CNN come as authorities in Wisconsin announced this week that the results of an investigation by the State Department of Justice, so not the federal, would soon be turned over to a retired police chief serving as an independent consultant for his review. The consultant is, in turn, expected to forward the case to local prosecutors, along with an analysis intended to help determine whether criminal charges against Chesky are warranted. The officer remains on paid administrative leave. Matthews told CNN he typically does not talk about pending cases, but said he felt compelled to provide some additional detail to counter what he described as an incomplete, inaccurate narrative that has emerged to date. Matthews directly disputed assertions by Blake's family and lawyers that he was unarmed and posed no threat. At the time Chesky opened fire, the lawyer said, Blake held a knife in his hand and twisted his body towards the officer. The action is not visible in the video widely circulating on the internet, in which the view of Blake's body is partially obscured by the driver's side door of the SUV. Matthews said a second officer at the scene, whom he also represents, provided investigators with a similar account of Blake's turning toward Chesky with a knife in his hand immediately prior to the shooting. The officer said he too would have opened fire, but did not have a clear angle, according to the lawyer. Authorities have said Blake had a knife in his possession, and the weapon was found on the floorboard of the vehicle, but they have released few other details of the incident, citing the ongoing investigation. CNN reached out to Blake's attorney, Benjamin Crump, for comment on Matthews' assertion, but did not receive a response prior to publication. However, Blake's lawyers have insisted he never posed a threat to the officers at any time during the encounter. What does that mean? He didn't pose a threat. Does it mean he wasn't armed? They said the guy had a knife. His father has denied his son was armed. They shot my son 7 times, like he didn't matter. Jacob Blake Sr., Blake's father, told reporters. But my son matters. He's a human being and he matters. I think human beings matter. But I think if you pull a knife while trying to kidnap a kid, you're going to get shot by the cop. And Jacob Blake's dad wasn't there, or he wasn't filming at least. They say Blake was the aggressor at the scene, attorneys say. Okay, I'm going to stop right there and I'll show you something. We know this guy had abused the woman already. I want you to look at these photos. What you're seeing is several football players in the NFL with Jacob Blake on their helmets. Talk about vile, disgusting people in the NFL. If you still support these players, I think you're sick. They put the name of a man wanted for pinning a woman down and jamming his hands inside of her and then trying to take her kid, at least according to the lawyer. He was accused of this. I don't know if he's guilty of it, but that's why the cops were serving the warrant, and they would put his name on their helmets. Wait until we actually have some kind of ruling on this. So you mean to tell me this guy was wanted for assaulting this woman, coming back? She was screaming, he's got my kid, he's got my keys. And you're praising him. Vile, absolutely disgusting NFL. I will not support the NFL in this endeavor to prop up someone like this. Shocking. They go on to say the shooting occurred minutes after Chesky and fellow officers responded to a call of a family trouble in a neighborhood a couple miles northwest of downtown Kenosha. According to a dispatch log, a woman reported to police that Blake had taken her keys and would not give them back. Blake's family member later said he'd been attending a birthday party for one of his kids. Once at the scene, Chesky watched Blake put one child in the car as he arrived, but was unaware that 2 more children were already in the vehicle. Matthews said, another officer heard a woman yelling that Blake had her children, he said, but did not see the kids in the car. Some of what officers say happened next was described in a press release issued by the Police Association last month. According to the release, Blake was non-cooperative from the outset and quickly became combative. When the officers attempted to physically take control of him, Blake actively resisted. An officer fired a taser at him, but it did not stop him, the release states. When officers tried to take Blake into custody a second time, he forcefully fought with them and was able to momentarily place an officer in a headlock, the release said. Matthews said the officer was Chesky. Police then tased Blake a second time, and he again appeared unfazed, according to the Police Association statement. At that point, Matthews said, officers noticed that Blake was holding a knife. Guns drawn, they demanded that he drop the weapon. Blake, according to the Police Association statement, did not drop the weapon and began making his way around the front of the vehicle and toward the driver's side door. Video of the incident shows Blake holding the knife in his left hand as he rounds the front of the car. The statement says, while it appears that Blake is holding an object in his hand, it is unclear what that object is. Shortly after the release, he's already said he had a weapon. Shortly after the release, Blake's lawyer disputed the police account as overblown and characterized the officers as the aggressors. Nah, I don't care. If you got a warrant, then the cop needs to arrest you. In our society, police need to be able to make arrests. Now, I will complain about the churchgoers who are singing, or I'm sorry, they weren't at church, they were outside, and they were singing and a couple of them got arrested. I will say that's unjust, and these cops are bad, but I'm not going to advocate for someone to resist. They did the right thing. You deal with it after the fact. I know it's frustrating. They shouldn't arrest them. Don't fight with them. Deal with it later and file your wrongful arrest suit. If it was wrongful, I believe it may have to be malicious. And there are tough problems, but I'll tell you what you do. You fight for reform to end this. You don't resist. In the Jacob Blake story, that's not what happened. It sounds like this guy was trying to kidnap some children, and he was armed with a knife, and he was dangerous and wanted on a felony warrant, what would you have the cops do? I was talking to a friend, and I outlined the story of Jacob Blake without saying Jacob Blake. I said, if you had all of these things happen, do you think the cops should shoot the guy to stop him? And she said, yes. I mean, he had a knife. The cops said drop it. He wouldn't. He was attacking them, wanted for pinning down this woman and doing horrible things to her. She told me, yeah, progressive friend. And I said, that's the story of Jacob Blake. Did you know that? They don't, because the left lies. They don't tell you the truth. And then they go around believing insane things for insane reasons, and it destroys our system, our society. I don't know if this will sway anyone's opinion, and I don't know if it's true. It's an allegation. Innocent until proven guilty. I'm sad. It's unfortunate that Jacob Blake got shot and that he's paralyzed. I'm not happy about that. But we need to have law and order in this country to a certain degree. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all next time.